welcome to the Jon Saunders Podcast.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Mate, it's been, it took us a bit of juggling. You're a busy man at the moment, right?
Yeah, right in the middle of it. Six Nations going on at the moment. But, you know, it's a good opportunity to come and share some thoughts on you know, what area and leadership that we're both passionate about.
Yeah, love it. Right, so I'm going to kick off with a question. So what do supporters see about how Welsh Rugby is actually trying to build players? What don't they see at the moment that you see that they're, you know, because there's a lot of assumptions at the moment that player development isn't working where it needs to. So what aren't they seeing that you obviously see?
Well, look, I think, you know, since I've been at the WRU the last 3 years, the transition of players from age grade into senior professional environments, be it regional, Prem club or international, you know, that pathway is alive and kicking. You know, you don't have to look at, you know, Morgan Morse, who was capped in the autumn, Louis Hennessy, who's going to get close to being in and around it in this Six Nations, Max Page previously last autumn. You know, these guys are all players that were excelling at under 20 level a couple of years ago and are pushing through into that international senior team. So the work that's being done, you know, in the pathway with the regions, you know, there's plenty of good players coming through. We just have to be patient with the ones that are going to take a little bit of time. Like ultimately, you know, they're young athletes. They're constantly learning, constantly developing. But we certainly have players that in the future will be the backbone of our national team.
Yeah, I love that. So and because we go back, I mean, Jack's going to get a mention in 3 podcasts in a row. This is the second time now. So just for the context for the listener, we've met each other at Cav.
Yeah.
You took on Cavac, obviously before the under-20s, which was, yeah, I mean, Cavac was an experience for Jack and all of you, I bet. But how have you found going from that environment to international? How did it all come about?
So look, like in terms of, you know, I just come back from Super Rugby, so I'd coached the Highlanders.
And how did that happen? Because that is for me. I looked at your CV and thought, oh,
yeah, so
that's a cracker.
It was totally out of the blue for me. So look, I'm a performance coach. You know, I'd coached in the Prem for 15 years.
Analyst? You come from an analyst background?
Started as an analyst in 2001. Did that for 5 or 6 years at London Irish. Transitioned from an analyst into coach. Was lucky enough to be involved at London Irish with Matt Pursuers, Thangy Thakubals, the Armitages. You know, an unbelievable team to work with, but also unbelievable coaches to work with. Brian Smith, Toby Booth, Glenn Delaney. So I was very lucky with the caliber of coaches that I work with to really help upskill me as a young developing coach. From there, moved to Gloucester, and from Gloucester, you know, in an academy setup, moved to the England under-20s for a year before getting an attack role at Scarlet. So was there for a couple of years, and you know, the nature of any coach, you're either you're always waiting to lose a job, like it happens, and you know, after a couple of years there, lost my job and was just treading water a little bit, and I got a phone call from Clark Dermody, who I'd coached at London Irish, who was then the head coach of the Highlanders, asking if I wanted to go over and coach over there, and you know, I was, you know, it wasn't something that was on my on where it expected. You know, I was right. I'm going to stay in the UK, coach Prem, coach URC, but you know, this opportunity to coach in Super Rugby was one I couldn't turn down. You know, I grew up Saturday mornings watching it with my old man. Yeah. Loved the brand. You know, it was
all moved over there.
No, so again, and it was a tough time in my life. So at the time, I was split up with my ex-wife at the time. So yeah, I went over on my own. So kids stayed here. So it was a very tough time for me, but it was probably the best thing in terms of me being able to almost reset personally, get over that. It was a fantastic opportunity career-wise, and something that you know, I'd do again in a heartbeat. And
difference, you know, we're something that you know, we mentioned before coming on. You know, something we're really interested in is leadership styles and culture piece. Give me an understanding, or the listeners an understanding of what exactly that culture difference is over there.
Look, the thing that I think is so natural to the Kiwis is their connection to their city, club, region. Everything's so small. Like each I was in Dunedin, small little university town, but the connection that the Highlanders had with them, and the amount the players and the team would be out and about in the town. You could understand how the players grew up wanting to play for the Highlanders, and this wasn't just the local guys from Dunedin. This is all into the South Island, and the connection piece was huge. It wasn't forced; it was very natural, but it was thought out. It was delivered. There was everything referred back to what being a Highlander, for example, was, and it was certainly something that I learned and developed in my coaching. I was very much, as we said, coming from an analyst background, very logical brain. Would be very much on the I'm seeing this as an option. This is what we should go. The Kiwis a lot more collaborative. Like players want to buy in and own the game plan. I remember having a lot of Sunday night discussions with Aaron Smith, really trying to almost sell the game plan to him. But then once he bought it, like it was phenomenal how he would then disseminate the information, and you almost go from being a coach in that situation to then facilitate the week because the players really want to drive the plan, and that's something coming back to the UK that I've really worked hard on with certainly now our younger players, to really try and drive the week and understand the plan, understand the game model that we're going into, and again hope that they can deliver it, because ultimately they're the ones on the field. They've got to have skin in the game. They've got to understand what the coach wants, but also they've got to feel. That's something that as a coach you're never going to have. Like, you've got that helicopter view, the perfect hindsight, but they've got the feel. So the more that the players can have an understanding and a buy-in to the plan, I think that the more they'll deliver it and it'll be successful.
Yeah. And have you learned? I mean, that Aaron Smith story. That's brilliant. I think that because if you don't get the players on board, it ain't going to happen.
No, 100%.
They talk about losing the changing room, and but it's not that isn't losing the changing room. That's just the concept of how you want to play the game of rugby, right?
Exactly, and as well, it's I had to give a few things over to him. Like there was certainly my philosophy of how I wanted to play the game. That was why I was employed, and it was certainly something that that's what I would stick pretty rigidly to, and the team were on board with. Okay, that's why they've employed the guy. But there was certainly little things in a week using his experience of we've played this group before, hasn't worked. Have you thought about this? And you go, okay, actually, I'm gonna give him this one because if it's his, if he owns it. If the playing group own that, then they're gonna go to it more often than if it's just say something that they think that I want. So again, that's certainly something that's developed in my coaching career, be it through maturing as a coach, but also working with some top players that you learn off as well as a coach.
Have you ever had that exact piece? Have you ever had something not go to plan with that? Where the change room just haven't bought into it or got it?
I certainly think, like I say, as a younger coach, almost trying to prove yourself a little bit, and feel like I need this group to do what I say. I
think that's quite a common. I see that in a couple of young coaches I work with at the moment. They just try and force their point across.
And look, ultimately. The players are the ones that make the decisions. So if you're forcing something that they don't quite get or understand or believe in, certainly if they don't believe in it, then you're going to be you're going to be struggling. It's going to be a tough sell. So certainly the way you deliver those messages, the way you get the players on board from a game model or philosophy is very important at the start. Those first few meetings, pre-season, etc., is going to be vital to get that philosophy embedded, but ultimately get the players to believe it more than anything.
Definitely. And what about the coaching team then as well? I suppose that belief, you can have, sometimes you can bring your own coaches on board and you can bring your team together, but you've still got to have, how do you get, so I'm a club coach, I would only ever say I'm a club coach and that's where I am, but if the club coaches listen to this now and they're like, well, do you know what? Really struggling just to get them to buy in. What sort of advice would you give a coach in that level?
So I think a phrase that I was taught at a real early age by Toby Booth, so as an assistant coach to the head coach and vice versa down, is disagree and commit. So there's going to be disagreements. If there's not a little bit of conflict in a coaching group, then and there's too much false harmony, then you're not going to be trying to find that little 1%. But at some point, you have to go, right, okay, I'm not quite seeing it like you, but this is the head coach's view. We're going to commit. And then as soon as that door shuts, you're out. You're a committed group. You're all selling the same message.
Yeah.
That's something as an assistant coach you have to buy into. And as a head coach, you almost have to make sure your group are on that same wavelength. And again, it might be that the head coach goes, okay, I disagree with that, but I'm going to go with you because you're so passionate on this point of view. You sold it to me really well. I'm going to back your decision. But then from a head coach's point of view, you can't then go, I told you so. You've got to be, you've got to.
We're all in and we're in this together. And when we decide, we're going.
100%. Disagree and commit is something that it's part of my coaching philosophy. Like you want that conflict, but you also then you want all in one way. Right, this is how we're going, boys. So I think it's important that's almost sold as a group early on.
Yeah, definitely. So Highlanders, you came back. Give us a bit of a run through from the Highlanders how it works. So what was next?
Came back from the Highlanders. And then, I was out of work. There's lots of little opportunities that were happening at the time. And that I came back, lots of the UK roles within the Premiership and the URC were taken up. Your agent saying just hold tight, and I'm like, I need to be working.
Need some
and the Cavac role, and as well as a coach, you're like, well, what's next as well? I know that I'm not always going to be employed, and it was something that opened up. I was like, okay, actually, I might be able to go into not necessarily a teaching role, but a school, college, coach, DOR type role in that, and it was something that this floats my boat. I'm still. I love the fact that it was at the top end of the schools competition. It was at a college that had been successful the previous couple of years, and knowing you had a good group of players. And it was an opportunity. I'm an on the field, I'm on the grass coach. I need to be coaching. So for me, the worst thing could have been sitting at home for a couple of months waiting for another opportunity. So it's get out, get your kit on, get your boots on, and coach. And enjoyed that 5 or 6 months at Cavac. A real good competitive competition. That I think it's grown over the last couple of years.
Well, you got a load of boys now in your squad that would have
pushed
played
through
in that. You're the prop from Camoid, again, I forget his name is Sean, and people that are in your squad now would have been playing in that league.
And look again that and then obviously the Wales 20s gig came about and was successful enough to get that. But you're right. Then I've already built connections with some players. Reece Cummins was a young 16-year-old when he broke through into that Cavac team. Now he's flying at under 20s level, and he's someone that. He's got a huge ceiling that I'm excited to see how far he goes. But it was interesting, seeing him day one at Cavac rocking up in his combats after he'd had a day on the tools to what he's like now. Again, it just shows that some players just need an opportunity and they grab it and run with it.
Totally, mate. I mean, that takes me. I went to watch Cav play down in Seaford. And I went down. I was the only supporter. I don't know why there weren't any supporters, but I was only one of the only supporters from Cav to go down because they didn't want any supporters down. But I sneaked in the back door, and I was watching this game. I think we were playing. It might have been Hartbury or Eton. It was someone Eton, and I was sat there watching. The guy said to me, he goes, "Oh, academy players and all this." And he said, "Oh, what are your boys made up of?" And I said, "Well, he's a plumber.
Yeah,
he's a sparky." There's no apprenticeships. I said, mate, they might be on apprenticeships, but they're on trade apprenticeships. And he was like, oh, wow, not academy. And I said, they're academy players, but they're all tradesmen.
But as well, you look like, in Wales, it's a blue collar sport.
Yeah.
You look over the bridge. A lot of the player pathway is private school, but here it's blue collar. It's what we're brought up on in that, and we have to tap into that. So, from a pathway point of view, we have to provide players the opportunity to get those apprenticeships in trade and skill sets, because part of that education piece is important as well. I think it's important we tap into that and understand what our history is around culturally how we grow up enjoying the game this side of the bridge. So, yeah, it's certainly something that as a pathway we understand and we have to tap into.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. If you don't, we lose the game. I mean, I do a lot of work in England, and it's a different environment.
Yeah.
And not wrong or right, it's just different.
Yeah, it is. You know, you think blue collar sport in England is football. White collar is rugby. Just the way that historically it's evolved, and it's not, like you say, it's not right or wrong either way. It's just, it is what it is. So you just have to make sure that you can cater for all guys with opportunity. So
totally, mate. Totally. And Wales came knocking then, or the opportunity came about.
Yeah.
How does it roll for someone who's looking into the Goldfish Bowl? How does it roll regarding approached interview?
So look, it was a job that went out to tender. So anyone could apply for it. It was certainly something that was encouraged to go for.
Brilliant.
And then goes through a proper process. So really good interview process. We had the Warren Gatland at the time on the interview panel. So it was a thorough process. I think 5 or 6 guys were interviewed, and it took actually a long time. Like it was a couple of month process to go through. Because again, I think it was certainly something the W were really striving for alignment from senior to pathway. So I think my previous history in working in both the top end at Prem and also in the academies in England and having under 20 experience as well, obviously
England under 20s as well.
Was favourable. So. And then we straight into the job. We had I got offered the job I think on a Wednesday. On the Monday we were in for a warm up test match against Scotland. The week before Christmas, and then we're into Six Nations. Then you're just rolling. So
and that phone call when you got it, or that message when you got told you got the job, what was that like?
Oh, delighted. As it happens, I was just about to complete on a house, so it was needed as well.
Great timing.
So it was perfect timing. It was fantastic in terms of it gave me a bit of stability for me and my kids, in terms of I got somewhere I can get myself sorted in for a few years. So from a personal point of view, that was important. But again, going back to career wise, it was my first opportunity to really drive a program. I had a taste of it at Cavac, but in terms of from top to bottom of a pathway, running that. As well as an international team, it was it's something I'm thriving in and really enjoying it.
I bet, mate, and doing a great job.
Thank you.
Right, from an outside looking in, doing a great job, and because the 2 games I've seen so far, obviously France and England, you're on the knocking door to beat both of them. But what was more impressive for me was we didn't look out of place. I've watched this against England on many years gone by and thought, these are shoulders above us. But I felt that both games, you were both in the shout with both, which is a credit to you and the team, right?
Yeah, and I think the narrative that unfortunately is getting pushed out there about not developing players, etc., I think is false. I think we can see that in the last few years in and around the 20s players. We're physically stepping up against these so-called bigger teams. And yes, we've got fewer bigger players, but we've still got plenty that we then need to nurture and really grow through and put resources behind and really back. And I think again, going back to almost your original point, there's plenty of young guys in and around senior teams and international teams that will be the backbone of our Welsh team to come.
Yeah, definitely, mate, 100%, and and I think that feeding on to that, then the way that I had one in my head. Your leadership style. So, and I know, if I'm sat there, Warren Gatland in the 5. What do you think they were looking at in you, and they thought this is a bit of a reflection on your own leadership style? And I'm interested in that. What do you think they would have seen that you've now sort of nurtured and brought through? What do you think that would have been?
Yeah, I certainly think I tapped into my learning from New Zealand around really having a player input around decision making, around philosophy and game model. I think again more around their ownership of the plan. I think that was important from certainly from Warren's point of view. I think we all know that the younger player. You got to go away from that dictatorial type of leadership.
Yeah.
So that buy-in's important. I think as well, I was highlighted that there needed to be alignment top to bottom. I thought, from looking from afar, the 20s seemed disconnected from the senior team. And it was certainly something that the W were craving for, and hence I think when I got my post, Rob Howley was also put in as that transitional type role. So it's certainly something that that we worked hard on in the first year or so of the role, that alignment piece. So I think
this really resonates, right? I've got a meeting tomorrow night with the junior section, right? And part of it is about alignment. For me, I've come up from sevens to seniors with Jack, and there's so much that I think we could do as a club, right? So I'm really interested. What does alignment mean?
So look, from a logistical point of view, like in terms of we have lots of players from a 20s point of view that can step up and help facilitate a senior training program when they lose numbers, etc. So from a pure logistical point of view, calling structure's the same. So it's easy for players to jump up and know what's going on. But from more of a philosophical point of view, like understanding what how the senior team see the game, and therefore what do younger players that are aspiring to get into that senior team, what do they need to, what are their core skills, what are their core beliefs and philosophies that we can coach at a younger level that are going to help those players develop to a quicker point. So you look at the test footy at the moment, the aerial game. Okay, so it's something that from an alignment point of view, ourselves, Steve's team, now we see the game the same way, and we're coaching players around the technical and tactical aspects similarly, so that there is we are getting the same type of players, or they're seeing the same attributes of players from a 20s point of view as what they want to see in the national team. In terms of like philosophies of play and we've always got a license as a head coach to coach the way you want, because as well, we don't want to be robots, and players have got to be adaptable and get different messages and play slightly differently maybe, but the key principles of play are certainly aligned from myself to Steve and Steve down. So and that was the same with Warren. It's important that we're producing players that can play their game model, because ultimately that's our job.
And have you found that transition from Warren to Steve, as in from that alignment piece specifically? Have you found that?
Yeah, so you look, obviously different characters. When Warren was in charge, I had some awesome chats with him, rugby-wise. Obviously, we had a common thread with the New Zealand link, which we certainly tapped into. I really appreciated his support. Supported the 20s hard, but with the role of Rob Howley, who was always that conduit, who's with us for all of our meetings, but then obviously with the senior team, that there was really good alignment through Rob. Now with Steve in place, there's probably more Steve's around, and there's probably more informal conversations with Steve around the game, players, what it looks like. So a different relationship as such, but they're both working mutually in terms of players. I think the key thing is that the players see the alignment. They can see that senior coaches are visible. They know that they're not far away. They can see their mates in the senior team. You got like Steph Emmanuel seeing Louis Hennessy. And there's lots of cross pollination. We train at the NCE, train at the Vale. So senior players and 20s players are interacting daily, and those little first interactions, connections, but also how they can learn off each other, and even just that, well done on Friday night, unlucky, did you think about this, and those little subtle ways of
like nuances.
You can't buy that.
No.
It's
I saw,
intangibles.
I'm not going to drop it. I saw Teddy and Bowen in David Lloyd's, and they were just going in for a swim, all of them, and I just thought that's what it's about.
Yeah.
That's what it's about. It's not forced.
No, and at the end of the day, connection is so important.
Yeah. So just on that word connection, because I think it's a word that's flown about, like like you're doing a rugby session or training session. It's like, we've got to connect, and I think some of the boys might look at me and go, "What do we mean?"
So for me,
What's it for you?
There's lots of different ways, but ultimately it's about guys spending time with each other. We put our bodies through absolute physical hell during a game. And the easy thing to do is to bail out. But at the top end, the car crashes every single collision, and in order to keep doing that for 80 minutes, for campaign after campaign, season after season, there has to be more than there has to be a want to do it for someone, and more than just yourself. So, that connection piece for me is, look, not everyone's going to be best mates, and you don't need that, because that's false. But you need to be able to want to do it for your teammate. And the only way you get that is through being a tight and connected group with a vision, with a goal. And so guys spending time with each other, be it, like you say, recovering, pool, beers, those intangibles, that they're still so important in the game of rugby, because of the physical toll I think we put ourselves through. There needs to be a feel of a joined up vision of what they're going after, and I think you get that through the intangible connections that we all know and love, really.
Yeah, definitely. And people say see sportsmen and elite sportsmen having a beer or two. Well, we both know how important that is, just for being normal.
100%.
They've got a life outside rugby.
100%.
Right.
And you got to be able to decompress, relax, and be it, there's lots of socials now that the senior boys would go on, and it doesn't have to be all around drink, for example, but there's certainly times where the pressure that those guys are under is huge. So they've got to be able to release the pressure valve as well. And
of course, mate. A lot of them can make a flat white like the best of them.
They do. That's one thing. Their coffee skills are amazing. They're baristas in the making. That's
they are
for sure.
baristas in the making, mate. All of them. I think a lot of I see walk around.
That's a great point.
Queen Street. They're all in the coffee shops.
Yeah, that's true.
So and I totally agree. It's not about beers, and even though my sort of trade has always been hospitality, it's not about drinks. It's about the connecting together,
spending time.
Yeah, I went to a really someone I was fascinated by, a psychologist with Wigan Rugby League, and he says they do culture hours, but they come in and the players, like every week, they do an hour where they just sit down with someone they don't know, and they talk about things about the other person they would never know, and they have an hour of just catching up. And he said he's seeing so much value because it's that connection piece.
Yeah, and look, we do something similar in that. We've got this year, we do something different every year. This year we've got every Monday, a different player in the squad will get up. They've had to done a bit of work, a little slideshow about themselves. What's important to them. It doesn't have to be anything about rugby. What's their growth been like? What's their family? What's their why? Get them up in front of the group, and firstly, you're improving their communication skills. It's not nice standing in front of 30 people if you're not used to it. But also they're giving them a little bit of themselves to the group. And we've had some really emotional stories come out. People have taken it some really interesting ways, and certainly. We're a tight-knit group, but you can see at the end of these meetings, players are going up to the player that might present and go, I didn't know about, are you okay? Or and it's been a real deep way of guys connecting, and I think little bits like that are important. Again, just to develop players around opening themselves up, but being able to speak, and it's only going to help us on the pitch.
Well, yeah, I train in psychological safety, right? And it's about how psychologically safe is the environment. Yeah. If it's really safe, then those moments can happen anytime, because that it's staying in the group. Yeah. And it's sort of, you're all looking after each other, right? So,
it's important. Again, and something that I learned through, spending time in New Zealand, actually working with some really good, Brad Moore, mentor of mine. Like when I worked with him at Scarlets, like his way of connection and that buy-in to the group, the little things you pick up from the coaches you work with, are huge for what I'm delivering now.
So, is anyone, a good question to lead from that then? Any particular standout? I say mentor, but anyone that really stood out for you in your journey so far? Because it's you've had a really varied journey. Is anyone that's really stood out to you?
So I think two guys like tactically, technically, and around rugby IQ, like Toby Booth at London Irish was fantastic for me. He gave me the confidence to. I think he believed. You've got rugby IQ, like sell it. I was an off-field coach for a number of years, and it was through Toby driving that. Yeah. And then since moving through, like I say, a close mentor now that I stay in contact with very regularly is Brad Moore, who's back at the Crusaders now. Like not only. I love having rugby chats with him and what's the trends down south and what does he think about how we're trying to play and vice versa, and we'll chew the fat about rugby, but more around that cultural, that connection piece, the way that he got a group of guys to connect around a theme and really having something outside of rugby that everyone was hooked into was very impressive. Having now worked with someone who'd been in that Crusaders environment, I can see why they're so successful. Like you can see some of the intangibles that they just naturally do. That you're like, you can see how a group connect to something. And yes, they're a load of All Blacks, so they're a good team. Yeah, of course. But there's lots of good teams that haven't won things.
Yeah, but what I love about that, something about that cultural piece where. Tipperick, which I've got to be honest, I saw the article on the weekend. I thought it was brilliant. He played for the Twos and go against, for me, that's brilliant. If I stood there, but New Zealand do that all the time.
Yeah, so
it's not uncommon, is it?
You got Dan Carter going back and playing club rugby after his, and like the playing fields are like cabbage patches. It's not. They're certainly nowhere near top end. No. And probably a difference there is they're celebrated for doing that, whereas in the UK would people see it as an opportunity to knock down the kingmaker? I don't know, certainly
I played with Mark Ring for many a year right at the end of his career, so he retired with St Albans, and all players wanted to do was kill him.
Yeah, and that's the
they couldn't touch him because he literally sidestepped his way out of everything, right? And he was. However much he didn't have his speed, he had his jinx still. Yeah. But everyone wanted to just kill him. Yeah.
It's obviously just a slightly different philosophy around. They celebrate it over there. Yeah. But again, that comes back to that connection piece of the local town that you from or that you grow up in, and.
It's like Gavin Ensign, right? Playing for Pincoid.
Exactly.
Brilliant. And he looks like he's loving it. He looks like he can get in the under-15s, to be honest, the way he looks, doesn't he? Yeah. But, definitely. And so, just on those players then, can we delve into how do players make, you've been around sort of elite sports for near enough all your coaching career, right? Yeah. What makes a young player stand out? So what really, in your opinion, what is one that sort of is going to I say make it, but what habits or what attitudes have they got to have in order to really be there?
So look, they're not going to be there if they haven't got talent. So they have to have the pure basic skill set or athletic prowess that's going to make them a top end pro. But the difference between the ones that make it and don't is work ethic. I again go back to the Highlanders, working with Aaron Smith. At the time he was 100 cap All Black. He was always the first in the building. Every single morning he did 500 calories on a stepper machine. Although he's ripped, he didn't need to do it, but that was part of his mental routine. 100 passes straight after that. So before anyone else had got in the building, he was physically ready. He'd nailed his passing routine that he wanted to before he then got into his day as such, or the rest of the guys' day. So, that ability to work outside of the so-called schedule working week is, I think, what makes the difference at the top end. Look at investing in yourself, your recovery, all the little bits that say coaches or that everyone sees it, but all the people don't see. That's the difference ultimately.
Well, I could go so many places. It really, I love. It is about the extras, right? We talk about extras. We talk about putting yourself away first. Colin Jarvis, actually, I saw him yesterday, funny enough, but he came on the podcast and I said, look, 90 odd caps for Wales. I said, captain for one of the things that stood out on the pod, he talked about putting himself away first. If I'm captain, I want to be first on the sheet for my own ability. Yeah. So I've got to be the best I can be. So I thought, fair play to you, mate. You know, and that's what you're talking about, right? That's
you're like the want to be the best. Anything, you have to put time into it. And the guys that make it at the top end understand, well, they can't stand still, because there's some young whippersnapper who's ready to take your position as well if you're just coasting. The guys that just rely on natural talent, they have a explosive career, but it won't be a long one. The guys we're looking at now, Mara told you 100 kappa this weekend, for example.
Yeah.
The work that he would do in and around his normal week. That's the difference.
Well, Alan Wynne-Jones is probably our prime example at home, right?
100%.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard so many stories about how he just sees himself off.
Yeah.
You know,
every single training session.
Every single,
first guy run into a huddle. First guy to get a bottle of water. Really chasing intensity in everything he did, and
he took a good one off Jake Ball, right?
Yeah,
and it was out there in the domain, but hell of a punch.
Yeah, fair
hell
play.
Of a smack, But that for me is that bit. I mean, I would look at that scrap or that little fight at that time as a bit of conflict.
Yeah, healthy conflict.
Yeah, and it's blown over, right? And you look at the Lions tours and Humphreys and him blowing up against Regan, but ultimately you see all these points, but it's pressure over building, but it's like that conflict bit, you know.
Yeah, and you don't want it to be a clappy happy environment.
No.
There's got to be a little bit of niggle. You want those guys that aren't selected to drive the training standards and and earn a shirt, and the success of your team is actually normally the guys that aren't in the 23 because of the quality of training or the quality of competition that they provide for the other guys. So we're bouncing around a little bit, but that you're right, that is a sign of, I think, a healthy environment, as long as it's like you say, shake hands afterwards. As to be fair, that's what I think rugby's great for as well. Like people leave things on the field, and it's important.
It's a great game.
Yeah,
I feel I'd love to hear your feelings on that, but I feel very humbled about being part of rugby. If I see a rugby player, I already know the sort of values they've got.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
Yeah, like I picked the ball up when I was 6. Played mini rugby since then, and I love the game. Like if I wasn't involved in it, I'd still be watching it. I watch every game possible that's out there. I'm a rugby nose, for want of a better phrase. But you're right around the values. You look at the way we treat our referees, and those intangibles are important about our game that we never want to lose. No. I think it sets us apart from other sports.
Totally agree.
And again, other sports are jealous at the ability to, after a game, being able to share a drink with your opponent that you've just gone toe to toe with, and little things like that are important. That I don't think we'll ever lose in our game, just because it's such a historical element of it.
Agreed. I totally agree. I've got 2 questions I've just got to keep in my mind, because the first one, the child or the player definitely understand the habits they've got to have. How important have you found the parent?
I think when you're in something from Gloucester that we spent a lot of time on, the parent spends those moments with a child post-training session, that drive home, like how important they are to reinforce a message, so I think it's about an education piece with the parents. If they don't,
from the coach,
or from the coach or team,
the team.
However you're set up, I think if parents understand where their son or daughter is in not necessarily pecking order, but what they're trying to work on or what the team's trying to go for, and the messages that are being delivered, I think parents can get behind that. I think where you see possible conflict is if there's minimal interaction. That's where you leave parents to almost make their own mind up on situations. And look, I'm a parent myself. I want you want your kid to play, don't you? Like, it's just human nature. So I think, be it at the top end or at grassroots level, an education piece or an interaction piece, almost going back to that connection, building relationships with key stakeholders in the player, which is always going to be a parent, school teacher, etc., letting them understand the why on certain things. And I know we touched on offline around that rocky road and trying to build challenges in young, high-performing athletes. And, again, I was in an environment where our best player, we chose to drop for 2 games to see how he would react. After those 2 games, it was explained to him, but also the family, the reason why, and then the understanding of, because those guys have got to help and pick the lad up and if they understand the why, like, okay, yeah, they're challenging, they're trying to push him, they're seeing what reacts to. And whereas if it was just no, we've dropped your son for no reason, you'd rightly be angry. So that education connection piece is huge. Whatever level.
And that bit is communication, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Because resilience in players. But I'm sat there. I'm a parent. I think my son's going to be the next Barry John. Right? I use Barry John because my father-in-law thinks and knows he was like a world-class player. Yeah, he's going to be the next Barry John, right? What can I do as a parent then to be the best I can be for my child to get to where they want to get to?
Look, I think you're always gonna want to push them. Like, I think it's important that support and challenge. So it can't be all support or it can't be all challenge. I think there's got to be a bit of both. They'll get that from the team, the coaches hopefully as well. But a joined up message from coach to parent, I think, is important. If there's conflict in that message, it confuses players, and the player will get frustrated with one or the other, which isn't healthy either way.
And how much impact does that have on your selection piece? If the parent isn't modelling those behaviours and aren't modelling those habits that you want to be seeing, how much impact does that have on a coaching decision for their child, whether it be boy, girl?
Look, I think you're always gonna want to pick your best team and best players. I think if certain parents are tough to deal with, then that's something that from a coaching point of view you just have to hit it straight on and confront's probably the wrong word, but communicate with that parent and then
have it out with them,
and let them understand your reasons why on selection or on decisions or how you want to play, and then ultimately leave it in the parents' hands to go down. Well, they're gonna go with you or against you on that. I don't think you should. Certainly, I wouldn't hold it against the kid. I think that's it's not their fault as such, but I think from a coaching point of view, you've got to be brave enough, bold enough. You've got to confront the issue if there is one. Have it out, as you say, and then let the dust settle, and ultimately, hopefully, the maturity of the decision should be made off the back of that.
And how good have you become on your journey, on your pathway as a coach? How good have you become now at that precise point about letting the child? Because the selection piece at our level, I'm Division 6, sort of, is still tough, and it's controversial or not, it's contentious.
Yeah, and I tell the boys, or I speak to everyone whose role changes every week, and look, they're the worst decision. The worst conversations you have in the week, because sometimes there isn't a reason. I had 2 conversations last week where I was like, look, this is my gut. Ultimately, this is what I get paid for. Like, I've got to make a selection decision. The one thing I won't ever do to players, I won't lie. I won't tell them, your left hand's a bit floppy, or you're not finishing your pass off. So that's why you can't. Like, the players are smart. You'll get caught out. So selection is opinion. If someone else was in my seat, they'd select a different team. That's just the nature of opinion. So I think you just have to be honest with the player around the reason why. Understand and communicate to them that they might not agree with it, and that's fine. There's no issue with them. I don't want them to agree with it. I want them to be wanting to play. But they need to be told in a. I think the environment's important. Making sure they're given time to process the decision. And I think how you set up an environment's important. So, for example, we will always tactically select our team early. We'll announce our team early in a week so that we give the team the best opportunity to prepare, but also, it allows players that are unfortunate not being selected time to decompress that information, so that then when they then are on the training field, when there's opportunity to almost get back in the team, they're mentally in the right place. If you tell a player couple of seconds or a couple of minutes before a training session, invariably you're going to get a poor performance out of them. If you give them a couple of hours or a day's prep before that, then you're going to get a determined guy that's right. I want to prove you wrong, and that's the type of player that we want.
Yeah.
We want that. Okay, I understand your decision. I disagree with it. I'm going to prove you wrong. Perfect. That's what we want from all guys not involved.
And I take it just from what maybe putting words into your mouth, or using the words, but if you don't see that, then you're seeing what you don't want to see in the player, right?
Yeah, look, if you get if there's players with huge conflict, or I think that the worst thing from a coaching point of view is something that I certainly don't like is when then a player will try and badmouth the guy in their position. I'll very quickly stop that conversation and go, look, this is nothing about the player that's been selected. This is about you.
Yeah.
This is what you need to do better, or this is the reason why.
Above
let's
the
go and work
line
on that.
leadership, right?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Take accountability or blame.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So I think that's important how a player reacts. And look, you've got to, everyone's different, so you've got to give players their own way of dealing with disappointment. But I think something that we've worked hard on as a group is, look, deal with that disappointment, but then your opportunity is the next training session. So that's when that's almost your match now. So that how you deal with that couple of hours information to then get to the point where right now I'm on. Okay, I'm going to make this training session the best I can be, because it helps the team, but more importantly, it helps me get selected the next week.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier on then that he's really well into that point around the wider field of, rather than the 15 on the pitch or the 23. You said about the other players actually playing such an important role in the success of that team. I take it that how important is that now for you in the under-20s with the team you've got?
Huge. Like we've got, we've got 41 in the squad. Every week, the 18 guys that don't play, they're the guys that set the team up. They're the unfortunate ones that have to, this week got to train like Scotland and learn other roles and be out of their comfort zone in that. They're disappointed, but they've still got to work and add to the team, and that's part of being a successful team. And we go back to that connection piece. That's part of being a connected group, that you will be selfless and you go, okay, my role this week is to set the team up. In 2 weeks' time, your role might be to start, and your mate that was playing last week, he's now got to set the team up, and that's just the nature and of a good team. And I think the success of a team is always in the guys that aren't selected, and how they deal with that and how they drive the team on. I think you can go into a club, region, national team, how that group of non-selected players act. Is certainly an identifier of their culture, or the team's culture. If you've got a group that are bought in, they get over the decision, but then go, right, we're going to make the team better this week. Shows good culture.
Yeah, great. Because there's so many, culture is just such a big word, right?
Yeah, it can cover multitude of things.
Yeah. But the way I define it when I do my training is, it's how you turn up.
Yeah.
And it's how everyone turns up. What a bit of someone looking into the under-20s at the moment. What's the culture like? What's the biggest difference you think you've brought over the last couple of years into that culture piece?
So we're very relaxed. So I want the boys to be themselves. I want them to be able to feel like they can put their personality into the environment. Like, we work hard on when we're on, and when we're off, we let's try and make it that club feel. Like and certainly things that we've done within the Vale, even just logistically, this year has been a massive. But we've now got a designated under-20s changing room. Previously, we were bouncing around different change rooms. Now we've got their own space. God knows what goes in there. I don't really want to get. But that's you need. Like,
you got a space.
Exactly, they've got their own space. The leaders control it. I leave that to them, and you could. They're a tighter group because of it, because they're spending more time together in the same sort of place. We have lots of mini team games. We've got groups. We split them into 4 teams at the beginning of the year and put prizes on. But again, that drives competition off the field, and we had a game of Snap, an imposter, and little things like that grow connection and grow little bits of culture. So hopefully people that come into the environment go, oh, this is a group of connected lads that have fun with each other. Yeah. We're lucky with the space we have. I certainly would want it to be a learning environment. And there's lots of different interactive.
How do you bring that to life in a learning environment?
So look, real simple. Like we've got lots of different spaces in our team room. We've got rugby pitches on tables where we're asking players to draw plays up. Okay, or we'd put a lot of tokens, almost like Sabutio. This is the defensive team, right? Where are we attacking? Right, you move your man. Like little things where you can get so much learning as opposed to, because there's only so much time you can be on the field. The amount these guys high speed run, etc. We can't have them like training for an hour and a half every day. Our sessions are short and sharp, so we have to be interactive around and innovative about how we learn. We're lucky we've got a big 7 metre by 10 metre rugby pitch in the middle of the team room where we'll all be up, we'll be chucking the ball around. Right, here's a line out here. What's the play? The why? Ball goes from one player to another. They're talking about their what they need to do, why, who they need help of. So being interactive and innovative around different ways of learning, I think, especially for a younger group, is really important. And as well, like we're in the Instagram 15-second generation. Like if we're just got a whiteboard up or a slideshow with loads of text on there, they're switching off.
Yeah,
whereas so you got to get them up, you got to get them moving around, you got to change the environment. And I think that's something that not only is the NCE been great for this year, but as a coaching group, we've pushed hard on, and I'll challenge our group, how innovative can we be? How much can we get these guys to talk? I don't want it to be a coach presentation.
Yeah. How
many times can we get players to talk about it? So you have to give a bit more time for that. You have to also understand there's probably going to be some wrong answers, or some answers that are different. Not necessarily wrong. But
you're also going to get it wrong.
100%.
As a coaching team,
we're not on there.
Totally. It's like it's not always I'm going to get it right every time. It's like we're not going to get it right.
And being accountable and honest about that is important. I'll happily put my hand up and go, look, we got that drill wrong, didn't explain it, didn't give what we wanted. Okay, now we've got to go to this, boys. Okay, my hand up right now. We got to get focused on that. And it's the same as a player. Like you want them to go, yeah, my bad, drop the ball. Right, next job.
Yeah.
Okay, like something we always talk around as a coaching group. We're never going to challenge skill errors because no one wants to drop a ball, no one wants to miss a throw. We'll then go, right, we need to work on that skill set wise. So right, in your performance week, you need to be getting more of this done. I'm going to help you with this.
Yeah.
But what we would then spend a lot of time on is that decision-making, element of, was it the right decision? Yes. Okay. What failed? Execution. Right. We'll work on the execution.
Yeah.
Was it a decision error? Yes. Okay. Why? What did you see that everyone else didn't? And then work through the loop that way.
Yeah. So on that note, then, however much I definitely, it's music to my ears regarding, look, people are going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Let them make mistakes. But the decision making is the bit that you. Is there any non-negotiables? Your style. Is there any non-negotiables within there that like this is my blueprint?
So look, from a philosophical point of view, and I want to see an expansive game of rugby. Yeah, you saw on Saturday night. The boys were moving the ball on their own goal line. So my
against
key,
England, right?
Yeah, and look, we are a team that play to space. That's my overriding philosophy.
Yeah.
Wherever you are on the field. The one thing then that I'll caveat that with, especially with our game managers, our 9, 10, 12, is putting context to our decisions. So I want us to have a look. If we don't get what we want, right, okay, can we now go, we'll be a smart team and go to the air or move the ball in a different way, use our kicking game. So you'll see there'll always be was it on decision? If the decision was yes, it was on, I'm like, right, I'm backing you, boys. I'm backing you. If we then get to a point where we had a crack and then we still then carried on forcing it, that's when I'll challenge the decision. Right, okay, the decision was right to go. Was it right? But then they shut it down. Fair play to the defence.
Yeah.
Right, now what's the next thing is, right, okay, where's the next space? So that's the sort of the decision-making loop that I'll go with some of the key guys. And I think we're lucky, this group this year have got some very smart footballers. They see space well, but they also understand the context of the game, the strengths in our group of, okay, actually, we've got a bunch of wingers that want to go and get the ball back. So if we're not able to run through a team, right, well, we can go to our aerial game or we can try and bring different strengths in. So that's the important part of that decision making loop. Like giving guys freedom, letting them make mistakes, but then also understanding there's always context behind what they're trying to do. These scoreboard, opposition, weather. They've always got to have that in their decision making.
So going back to goals, I love, again, there's so much stuff that as a club coach you don't. However much you think, like, I'm questioning whether I'm doing it right. I'm sat there going, yeah, we do that, because I think it's on all levels, right? I think what you're doing is on all levels. So one thing that, you've got goals. What are the goals for the 20s? When you take on that role, what would be your natural goal? How did you create the goals? And then second follow-up to that, how do you then embed them into the coaching team and the actual team? So
from a coaching team point of view, there'd be two faceted. So first facet is, when players graduate out of 20s, are they what I call rugby ready? Can they go into a professional environment and play? Be it they might only be needed 5 times in that first year, for example. They might be, you look at Morgan Morse, they might be needed to play every game that year. But are they rugby ready? That's our job. We've got to make professional rugby players. The second part of it is developing players, understanding how to win at an international level, and that might not always be on scoreboard, like win or loss. That would be understanding how to win. So that game management piece, putting them in scenarios and building the learning, so that when they do then get into the senior team and into that top red shirt, they've had plenty. They've had hopefully 20 caps at under 20, for example. That they've already got a bank of knowledge where they've been playing against the best players in the world at their age, that they're now playing against at an international level. They can take the learnings that they've had through the 20s, less pressure, and use that in the top end. So from a coaching team point of view, like, we'll always be challenging, right? Is this guy ready to play senior rugby ultimately? And then what are we doing to develop our winners as such? What from every facet, training, games, what are we taking that's going to make this player better at winning when they get to the top end? Yeah.
But what about goals, as in, do you put goals on performance?
Yeah,
or?
So look, we will always, subconsciously, we've got targets around where we feel like we should finish.
So good, better grades, understanding where you are.
Yeah, but around performance, we've got a lot of KPIs that we feel if we hit our metrics during a game, that'll give us the best chance of success for that match. And they change because of the opposition or the weather or what we've focused on in the week. But certain things are around your set piece, your penalties, your territory game, your sort of turnover rate. These sort of things don't change much through a game. If you hit certain metrics, it's going to put you in the best chance to win games. The game doesn't change too much. Yes, there's more nuances as you go through law changes and things like that, but ultimately, it's an invasion game where you need to be up the other end of the field to score points. That ain't ever going to change. No. So there's only certain ways you can get there. So about ability to be disciplined, so you're not letting the team go that way, to have a good set piece to go that way, have good kicking games to go that way, and a good ball movement team. Like, that's what you'll see from us, and we've got KPIs that obviously match up with those.
I'm being selfish with this question because I want to know, and I think other people will want to know.
Yeah.
Pre, mid, post game, right? How do you prepare the team the best you can before? What's your team talk look like, and what does post game look like for you with your teams?
So pre, is obviously the week. So you've got the week to disseminate the information, get your game leaders driving what you see is the plan for the game. So invariably that's done in the first two days of the week, from an attack and defence set piece point of view. And then we'll back end of the week back off a little bit, and I'll challenge the players to they're the ones that have got to drive the week a little bit more, and they're the ones driving.
Closer to the game, it's been more player-led.
Examples
of that?
So, for example, on a Monday, Tuesday is more coach-led or mini group-led.
Yeah.
Thursday, Friday. So Thursday, players will lead the meeting. That will be them reiterating our key points, going over some of the key videos that we've done during the week.
And do you have like senior leaders within the team that stand and do that?
Yep, so we got attack leaders, defence leaders, set piece leaders, obviously game day captain leaders.
Yeah.
So those sort of 4 or 5 players will drive those messages. We're working with them to try and draw out more information on the group. So as opposed to them just telling, they're actually now asking the players, what are we going to do here?
What do you think?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So almost that second question is important from those guys, and then you're into game day -1 on a captain's run, and again that's very much me, very much standoffish. I'll drive a few scenario based decision or questions for the players, but we've got a group now that know what they need, and Stefan and Dayan, our 2 captains, drive that incredibly well. And then to be fair, we're very good at then switching off. So our captain's run will normally finish, mid-afternoon, day before a game. Invariably our games are at night, so we've still got a day and a half where there's nothing involved. So we've actually brought in a nice little tradition of a captain's run night quiz, which our forwards coach Mark Breeze takes care of. The boys are into it. Again, another connection piece.
Great play.
It's important. Like they enjoy it now. Like it's become part of what we do. But again, it's a subliminal way of them connecting and not all being in their bedrooms. They're back together. They're connecting.
Yeah.
And then we'll switch off, and then come like hour and a half before kickoff is when we'll pre-match. And again, for me, that's my last formal time of speaking to the group. It's still an hour and a half before the game, so I'm very tactical in that messaging.
What exactly, again, going into the granular detail on that, then are you just mapping out all the work you've done?
So it'll be pure like recap of our key messages. So we'll tap into the theme that we've been working on all week. Some of the key tactical messages on both sides of the ball. Maybe I'll touch on a few players in terms of what we expect. But it will all be tactically based, because again we're still 90 minutes before kickoff. I don't want them to be bouncing off the walls at that point. We're team. We're then obviously into the ground and pre-game warm up, etc., and then that sort of chat a minute or two before they go out for the anthems. I'm to be fair there. I'm more one-on-ones, just grabbing a player. This, enjoy it. This is what I want you to do, because they're so amped by then. Like you don't need to. They're so proud to put the jersey on. Like it's just then just trying to really just give them the confidence to go out there.
There's a lot in that, my mate, isn't there? Those
like,
one-to-one moments. Arsene Wenger, there's a load of those stories around that cup final they won. And he literally had one-to-ones with all 11 players going on like, you're the main man today. And he did it with all 11.
Yeah, and it's important. Like just that little bum tap, for want of a better phrase, like giving them trust, giving them confidence. Look, we're backing you here, boys. Like, you've trained really well. You're here for a reason. Like, what you're supposed to do. Just go out, rip in and enjoy it. Like,
So then again, you go in, you're in the sheds. Yeah, I mean, obviously England, you 16 up. What is that? How do you take those sort of conversations? Are you a bit more technical? Did you get the iPads out? How does it work?
So in that 15 minutes, that first sort of 2 or 3 minutes that we let the players decompress, get their water on, gels on, they're talking about the game, then we'll come in, and from a coach's point of view, I've said to all of our coaches, the first question has to be, how do you feel? Not like look at this, like how do you feel? Because again, they've got a different understanding of the game. Get a little bit of their feedback, then you're right, the iPads come out. Well, have you seen this? What about this? Let's maybe go to this next half, and then ultimately, with 5 or 6 minutes to go, it'll be me wrapping it up and go, right, okay, these are the key messages that we got from a back line, we've got from our forwards, attack, defence, and this is maybe what we're expecting from the mob in the other changing room, and this is what we need to go after. And to be fair, normally the messaging is only really aligned to those first 10, 15 minutes because of the second half. Because again, the game evolves and flows so quickly. The boys have got to adapt, and generally talking around this is what we need. If we can get through, the message from England 16 up, it was the big target around can we keep momentum, understanding that we know England will come out firing in that second half, and can we be smart around our kicking game to be as high up the field as possible with the conditions being what they were. So it's a mixture of that tactical and technical piece, but also again, they've just been sitting down for 10, 15 minutes, so there is then an emotional spike at the end of that message, and knowing that we've got to go again now, boys. We haven't got the anthem to get us up. You got to do it in here. It's a I suppose a balancing act, and also experience tells you where you need to go. I don't raise my voice very often, ultimately because again I am a logical thinker, and I feel like I want to give or help the players with calm messaging, but that also gives me the opportunity, if I do feel like I need to go in and kick some doors, for want of a better phrase, like it probably has a little bit more impact. And so I think you've got to know who you are as well. I certainly know that that's not me as a leader, but it allows me to go there because I won't go there very often.
Yeah. So it was, I think, someone yesterday was talking about banging. It was about Tony Blair, actually. He was on last night. He was talking about as a leader, he's not the one that loses his head.
Yeah.
But when he was banging the table at one stage, and everyone was like really shocked by it because he just didn't do that as a nature.
So I think it's important you know yourself as a person. Like again, I know sometimes I'll lean on my assistant coaches because they probably are a bit more emotional in their leadership or their messaging, and go, I think it might be need for you at
different colour trades, right?
100%.
I train yellow, green, blue. The insights piece.
It's important.
You've got to have a mix of everyone. So who's just going? I want to see what you would do at the end, but that middle bit. Is anyone that you've just thought they own this changing room as a coach that you've been involved with?
I think again tactically, Toby Booth, who was very good solution based.
London Irish.
Yeah, London Irish.
Yeah.
Like he'd see a game, understand what was needed for his group, be it forwards or team. Very very good tactically, and good with the group in terms of we need to flip our game plan. This is what needs to work. From again connection piece, Brad Moore would be able to chill a group out, really build confidence in a group regardless of the first half, be it good, bad, indifferent. Very calm with the way that he led, but I think the fact that he was so nurturing, the group just resonated with him, and would go to war for him. So however he articulated his message, you could see the boys were hanging on every word. Yeah. So a couple those two, to be fair, in different ways were really impressive, and certainly areas that I've tried to learn from.
Do you think you got it right?
So you go back to the England game.
How do you find your delivery? Do you think, I know we're always learning, but we're again on that journey of delivery, and because I always thought, that half time.
It's the key time. I think it's. I've certainly learned to take more time. 15 minutes is actually a long time. Again, we're as a coaching group, we're coming in fresh. We haven't been running around for 40 minutes. We just want to give all the information out, but actually it's no, take your time, allow the players to have a breath, but allow them to give their feedback. Because I've the last few years where I've been better at it, certainly my notes that I've written down, they've fed back, and I'm going, okay, I don't need to say that, because that's going to either it's been said or I'm going to contradict totally what they feel.
Gotcha.
And if I go, nah, you're totally wrong, this is it. You're like, well, we've lost the group.
You lose the group.
So sometimes you got to go, right, okay, I'm going to give them that one. They feel this. How else am I going to manipulate my message? Or
I'm going to give them this one.
You got to they're the ones in it. They're they're the only thing you want to be able to just help and give them some almost signposts to go after in the second half. But you got to give them the ability to spill out what they're feeling as well. I suppose as well, for what better phrase.
And then fast forward then to the end of the game. And again, I'm fascinated by it. So I know there's going to be people that want to. I see sometimes a huddle at the end of a game, and I think they're still there 10 minutes later. That for me, that's not like let's get it done and get it either. That's for me, that's too long. How do you take the end of the game, whatever the result, win, lose or draw?
So mine won't be long, but I think it's important to celebrate little things in there. So we'll always celebrate the new caps. I think it's important, regardless of a result. The first time you get your Welsh cap is an incredibly important part of your career, and so we'll make a point of celebrating those guys. It's important, I think, from a head coach to wrap up the game, be it positive or negative, but quickly feed forward to the next week. Like, you can't hang on results too long, and so it's about almost setting the scene a little bit for the next week. So, for example, after the England week, I spoke to the group how proud we were about the performance, but how we got to learn from that second half. We lost the kick battle. That's our learning. And then, but when we turn up on Monday, we're into France. And this is what it needs to be for this week. So I think you got to think pretty quick, because I'm devastated at that point as well. I'm emotive, but it's important that I think the players see your emotion, but it doesn't let you. You don't let the emotion change your message around what needs to feed forward. So those are a couple of key things that I try and get across. I lean on my team manager Andy Lloyd a bit. He's very good post game at almost just make if you think you've got probably 2 minutes to get down from the stand, another couple of minutes while they do the tunnel. Like, you've only really got 5 or 6 minutes to go. Okay, actually, I've got to pick this group up from a devastating loss after a really good performance. We've got to pick this group up and get them ready for another big performance next week. So it actually is it's incredibly important to try and get that right, because as well, I think then if you get that message right, it's important you reiterate on the Monday, because as well there's 18 guys that weren't in that circle. The guys that weren't the 23, they didn't hear that message in. So it's important you close the circle. Those guys know what's important for the week, and go again, really. So it comes naturally. Like, you get some right, you get some wrong. But I think it's an important part of closing the week.
Yeah, definitely, mate. And then so let's fast forward into France. End of the French game, obviously, big game coming up. How's the week gone?
So we put a massive emphasis on our leaders this week. Be it it's the third week on the trot. First time they've done that in the Six Nations. So
are we asking who they are in the team, the leaders?
So we've got our two captains, Stefan, Emmanuel, Diane Gwynn, Kaio James, Luke Evans, Tom Bowen, Kerrig Smith, and Sean Davis. So brilliant. We've got a mixture of young and old in there, a mixture of different positions intentionally, but most importantly, a mixture of personalities. And trying to tap into different leaders through the week. For example, Kaio James is probably one of the best trainers I've ever seen. Like, he is 110% every single training session, and what he is on game day, he is every day of the week.
He trains as he plays.
Yeah, and so my message to him through a week is, right, you need to get the rest of the boys to your level today. Because it can't always be the captains, can't always be Days and Steph communicating, because it's important their voice on the Saturday or the game day is the most important. So can we use the other leaders to help message and disseminate the information through the week? So those guys, we met them early on Monday. Took them out for coffee and spoke about how important the mindset was for this week, because we have played the two best teams in the comp, like from history, and the easy thing would be, I will just turn up and Scotland will be all right. But it's important that they know that actually good teams are able to, even when you're either off the back of a good performance, have to be able to get the mindset right from day one. Like, it's a short turnaround this week, so we had a walkthrough on Monday and train Tuesday, and that's us done for the week. So challenging the leaders to go, right, we've got to get all of our normal week information into a day and a half. So the day one's going to be incredibly taxing from a mental point of view. Can you get the boys in the right space?
And have they done so far?
Yeah, they've been brilliant. So challenge them around, needs to be our best walkthrough we've had. Like the noise and energy coming out of it, you knew the boys were on. I think look, the group know that they're a good team. They know that they could be sitting 2 from 2. They're excited at the opportunity because we've got 3 games left in the Six Nations, and there's a big World Cup where
it's a big year.
Yeah, where France will be one of the favourites going into that competition, and we push them toe to toe. So the boys know that on any given day we'll compete with anyone in the world. So there's confidence from that, but they know that this week they've actually got to perform. If we perform again, hopefully we'll get the result. But they know that they can't. It's not just going to happen. They've got to go through the same process they built through the other 2 weeks to get there for Friday.
Yeah, well, taking the learnings, right?
100%.
Taking the learnings and moving it forward. So. Yeah, look, I've loved it. I knew you'd be great to come on because it's just like you ooze rugby, but the way you do it is totally different to me. And I love that because that analytical background I know you've got. You look at the game in a different way than I would.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of other people do as well.
Yeah.
But that's the strength of the pack, right? You've got a great coaching team.
Yeah, and that's so. You look at Josh Turnbull, who's in this year. He's added a huge amount of detail around our defensive game, but his energy for coaching is incredibly important. He's got that motive ability to make guys want to tackle. And then Mark Breeze, our forwards coach, again, passionate Welshman. Who but has got an incredibly fun side to him, so it never feels like you're working with him. Like the boys are constantly enjoying themselves, working hard, and want to do well for him. So as a group of coaches, I think we've got a really broad spectrum of personalities. We bounce off well together. We're close, which is important. But it was certainly something myself and Andy Lloyd were really focused on, making sure that I know what I'm like. We need to get guys that are slightly different, that can complement me, and we can complement each other. I think that's important. And again, it's not just about the coaching group. Our management team, our physios, our analysts, again, all got different personalities that we tap into to provide that element of fun, seriousness, competitiveness when it's needed through a week.
Yeah, I love it. All teams bring different people together.
Yeah.
So, look, it'd be remiss of me even not to ask at the end, or at least a question around, if I'm sat there as a Welsh supporter, and I'm looking at the pathway, I'm thinking of, we could potentially, I'm not saying we will, but we could potentially have 3 wooden spoons in the senior game. What message would you have for me as a Welsh supporter, looking at it from the outside in, that because we're not going through the best of times, right? But what message would you have for them if they're sat there listening?
Well, you got to look back in history about where teams started to change pathways. You look at France, sort of 7-8 years ago, changed their system. It took them 5 years, and then they were triple under-20 world champions. That team's now playing week in, week out. That was your DuPonts, etc. So it takes time for guys to come through. The same with the England. England should be winning age grade tournaments every single year. They haven't won one since. They won one 2 years ago. Before that, they hadn't won one for a number of years. Yeah. They changed their pathway in terms of how they get opportunity, and it's taking time to come through. Same thing with us. We've got at the start of the journey. We're 3 years into the journey. We're starting to see guys filter into the senior national team. We're seeing guys playing regular URC and Prem minutes. That it just they're still 20, 21, 22. These guys, once they get to that 25, 26, 27, and they're week in, week out hardened senior pros, that's when we're starting going to see our national team really, really kick on. And look, the amount of work that's being done the senior end with us to kick these players on, the country got to have confidence that it will happen. It's not going to happen straight away. Things take time. It's not for a want of trying. There's lots of hard work being done to accelerate learning and give our players the best opportunity to perform on a Saturday. But rest assured, we've got good players coming through. We've named dropped a few during the conversation, and there'll be no doubt a number more that will put their hand up in the next couple of games. But there's guys out there. We just got to give them a bit of time.
And I get the sense from you that it's pretty clear. I think I say as a punter, I'm not going to get into the higher echelons. That's not for this conversation. But just clarity. I think as a supporter, we want clarity. Do you know what? There was one moment I really loved about Tandy on Saturday. I went to watch it Saturday, and I was lucky enough to watch the warm-up.
Yeah.
And I loved the way he put the cones out. So, like, for me, to us two, I think we understand, and any coaches listen to this. I love the fact that he just put the cones out for the warm-up, and he was involved in all of it. And I definitely we'll get there. It's hard in it at the moment.
Yeah, and look, like, Steve's an on the grass coach, like, loves it. Like, the energy and the passion that the senior group have, and to be fair, the vibe that's coming out of we spend a lot of time up there with them. The players are improving every day. Like, you can see that, again, Steve's working hard on that connection piece as well. They're a tight group, so it's only going to benefit us in the future. Yeah. There's some tough roads to go past, but it's that, again, we are developing. There are elements of our game that are improving, and it will take a bit of time. But again, for the Welsh supporter, everything that can be being done is being done to really accelerate the growth, both from a national team and a pathway team.
Good. Mate, I've heard nothing else but pathway, and I can see it. I can have my own views on where the pathway's at, and I do, but I've seen it working.
Yeah.
I've seen you develop some really good lads. You know, Bowen played against us, when we were in the upper age of youth, and he had a blinder, right? And I thought then, like, mate, you're gonna, and he's gonna do it, right?
Yeah,
he's
will,
doing
100%.
stuff. Sean the same. He played as Penturk all the way through. So I really do, I wish you all the best. I know this is going to come. But what about you then? What does the future look like for you?
Look, I love what I'm doing. I love being in charge of a program. Look, I've got aspirations like any coach, but also I know coaching is a journey. So whatever environment you're in, I think it's important to learn from. I'd love to almost naturally grow with some of these players, and I want to coach at the top end of the game internationally one day. That's an aspiration of mine. Yeah, that's my aspiration of mine. Look, I've coached at the top end from a club point of view. But haven't won anything from a club. We lost the Prem final one year, which is the closest they got, which still hurts now. No, that was with London Irish, 2009. So look, to win something in the senior men's game and to be an international coach is probably where I want to be.
Yeah, brilliant, mate, brilliant.
Cheers.
Is there a question I haven't asked you wanted me to ask?
I suppose it's a tough one. We've got through quite a fair bit, to be fair. Almost that, like, you're tapping into that resilience piece about how important it is there's always going to be setbacks in a player's career, and no career is a straight line. But that for young players that might be listening, that ability to, pick your chin up, go again, keep working hard on any aspect that the coach is want, or that's only going to serve you well in the back end of your career. So things aren't always going to be perfect, but sometimes it happens for a reason, sometimes it just happens, but you just got to be resilient around it.
Mate, and on that note, there was a reason why I wanted you to come on, and I'm so glad I got you now, because I think that conversation, I'm a very proud Welshman, and I'm probably one of the people around there around that sort of regional piece that I think Wales has got to buy back into.
Yeah.
But I definitely come across from just this conversation alone has really just got my eyes to say, right, we're in a good place at that level.
Yeah,
20s are in a good place.
Yeah.
We now need to make sure that whatever's gone on, Gatlin, the timing, all that, we just got to invest in our guys. Yeah. And it's in good hands, mate.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm enjoying it. It's they're a pleasure to work with, the boys, and like I say, they want success for the nation as much as anyone. So they'll certainly be putting their best foot forward on Friday. Yeah, mate. Well, all the best for the rest of the Six Nations, and thank you ever so much for everything you've done for me, Jack, and the rest of it. No worries. Cheers, mate. Brilliant, mate. Nice one, mate. Thank you. Brilliant. Cheers, mate. Take care.